branch and put a right arrow, and below branch you will write level and put a down arrow. Okay, put a level, put a branch and put a down arrow. Okay, then you will make a column and end it there. Then you will write L. L stands for legislature, a broad column. Then you will make a second column for E. E stands for executive. And then I can see that there is the next I as logo. So we have to just be very careful about it. So here we put the third column. And the third column broadly refers to judiciary. Okay. The third column broadly refers to judiciary. So just remember that. Okay. So L, E and J. Then we simply make a coordinated column. Okay. Now let us understand the structure and the layout of the Indian state. Let us start. We are going to first be looking at the center, right? We are going to first be looking at the center so that we can understand exactly what it is we are referring to. So you write center. Okay. Now, from the legislative point of view, we have a bicameral legislature. So you can write Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Okay, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and each of them have two types of members. Now Lok Sabha only has elected members. Rajya Sabha will have elected as well as nominated members. And a simple way to remember what the nomination criteria for Rajya Sabha is LAS. You know, LAS, literature, arts, science, social service. Okay, literature, arts, science, social service. All right. So this is how it is. Now we know Lok Sabha, we discussed direct and indirect elections. So remember this. Both of these, all of this is indirect. Lok Sabha is indirect democracy but direct elections. Rajya Sabha is again a form of indirect democracy and indirect elections. Okay, indirect elections. Okay, are we clear on this? Okay. All right. Now we come to the executive, and we understand the executive is going to have basically two kinds of executive: elected executive and the permanent executive. Now please understand the difference. Elected executive are basically ministers, and permanent executive is basically your civil services. Elected executive is the mantri, permanent executive is the babu. The babu you want to become, not the babu you have or want to have. Two very different things. This is the babu you should want to become, not the babu you have. Two very different things. Okay? If you become the babu you want to have, you will never become the babu you want to become. Extremely important concept in life. Okay? Alright. So, permanent executive and elected executive. Okay. Is the voice too low? I don't think it is. Now, elected executive comprises of the Prime Minister, the Council of Ministers, which is basically including the Prime Minister, and then you have certain terminologies. Like, for example, a minister is the head of a big ministry. A minister of state is the assistant to the minister of a big ministry. And then you have something called Minister of State Independent Charge. That is the minister of a small ministry. Alright. So Minister of Finance, minister. But Minister of Panchayati Raj will usually be an MOSIC. The basic idea is that the total number of ministers cannot be more than 15% of the strength of the Lok Sabha. We'll cover it when the time is right. So don't worry about it. Okay? Are we clear on this? Okay. Now, at the helm of affairs, we have the president at the center. Okay? Now, we simply draw another line and we come to the layer of the states. Okay? We come to the layer of the states. Alright. Now, for the states, we have states / union territories. Now we have the governor as the head for the states, and we have the lieutenant governor as the head of union territories. Okay, head of union territories. Now, at the level of the states, we're essentially looking at two kinds of divisions. Either you're going to have states or you're going to have union territories. So, you're either going to have states or you're going to have union territories. Right? Now, what is Lok Sabha at the center? You have state legislative assemblies at the state, and in a select few states, you have state legislative councils. Okay, 8 states in India have state legislative councils. Okay, okay. Now you have union territories. There are two kinds of union territories: with legislatures and without legislatures. Okay, with legislatures and without legislatures. I'll explain them to you in detail. Don't worry. Let us quickly draw this properly. Okay? Alright. Here, the exact same thing. Here also you have elected executive and you have the permanent executive. The only difference here is you have the CM here. Here you have the chief minister. That's the only difference. Rest is more or less the same. If you compare the center with the states, you've got the cabinet secretary here, who's assisted by other secretaries, and then you have all other officers of group A, Group B, Group C and Group D. The permanent executive here would comprise of All India Services and Central Services. All India Services are IAS, IPS and Forest Service, not Foreign Service, Forest Service. Foreign Service is Central Services. So, Foreign Services, Revenue Services, Railway Services, etc. are Central Services. So, All India Services are those which are recruited by the center, removed by the center, but they largely work at state cadres. Central Services are recruited by the center, removed by the center, and they work for the states. Okay. In the permanent executive, this Central Services changes to State Services. The Cabinet Secretary changes to Chief Secretary, and everything else more or less remains the same. You have All India Services officers at the level of the states as well. Okay. Now let's come back to the legislature. So, like the Lok Sabha, you have only elected members to the legislative assemblies, but you have elected and nominated members to the legislative council. Now, if LAS is Rajya Sabha, you and I are sitting in a class, so class is state legislative councils. So, CLASS. C stands for Cooperative Societies, Literature, Arts, Science and Social Services. Literature, Arts, Science and Social Services remains the same as Rajya Sabha nominations, and Cooperative Society is added, so it becomes a matter of the state subject. Okay, so this is how it is. Now, union territories with legislative assemblies basically have a legislative assembly, and the ones that here, they don't have a legislative assembly. Okay, that's the basic difference. There are only 3 union territories which have a legislative assembly. They are Delhi, Pondicherry, and now recently J&K. Okay, otherwise all other union territories don't have legislative assemblies. They just have union territories, and irrespective, their heads are called lieutenant governors. Okay, now see. Lok Sabha MP is called an MP. MP stands for Member of Parliament. Rajya Sabha MP is also called an MP, stands for Member of Parliament. Member of the Legislative Assembly is called an MLA. Members of the State Legislative Council are called MLCs. MLCs. Whereas in Union Territory, if there is a legislature like Delhi, so Delhi also will have MLAs only. Okay, clear on this? So this is largely how it is divided at a national level. You're either a state or a union territory. If you're a union territory, it might be with legislature or without legislature. In India, you have at the moment 28 states and 8 union territories, out of which 3 have legislative assemblies and 5 union territories don't. Very recently, Jammu and Kashmir is the only state in the history of this country to have been demoted from a state to a union territory, and most recently Daman and Diu and Dadar and Nagar Haveli have been integrated into one union territory. They are no longer 2 union territories. Alright, so this remains the same, this remains the same, we are fine here. Okay, alright. Now we look at the lower part of it all. This can get slightly confusing. You just have to pay absolute attention. Now we are inside a state. Now inside a state, we basically have 4 divisions. Okay, there is a district, there is a subdivision, there is a subdivision, there is a block, and there is a village. Okay, now when you're within a when you're within a state, then you would want, we live in a world of 2 Indias. An India which has issues with Netflix, and an India where there is no electricity for 10 hours a day. and that is the differentiation at the local level, right? So we are largely talking about rural and urban. Okay, we are largely talking about rural and urban. So we have a further differentiation on the basis of rural and urban. Okay, a further differentiation on the basis of rural and urban. Okay, so we'll start from the lowermost. We need to create a house here. Now, before we do that, and before I forget, legislative assemblies are again like the Lok Sabha, indirect democracies but direct elections, whereas state legislative councils are again indirect democracies but they are a combination of direct and indirect elections. They're a combination of direct and indirect elections. Okay. Now, the first two levels, center and state, these are the two forms of indirect democracy. And these two forms of indirect democracy are basically in and around choosing a representative who's going to take certain actions on your behalf. But we want power to be given to the people. We want the community to decide what is best for them. So we now need to look at tools of direct democracy, which we had discussed in the class before, I think, day before yesterday. So we start from the lower level. Now, in the rural part of the country, we have a 3-tier system. In the urban part of the country, we have a 2-tier system. We'll do all of this in detail. So at the village level, the Lok Sabha or the assembly at the village is called the Gram Sabha. Now, what is the difference? See, you are choosing an MLA, you are choosing your Lok Sabha MP. Here, you are the local MP, you are the local MLA of the Gram Sabha. You don't choose members to the Gram Sabha, you are a member of the Gram Sabha. Anybody who is fortunate enough to come from a village and is above 18 years of age, you are not choosing the village parliament, you are the village parliament. You will always be the village parliament if you are above 18 years of age. Okay, so this is called Gram Sabha. Alright, now a couple of villages come together, then you have a cluster of villages called a block. This is called Panchayat Samiti. Okay, this is called Panchayat Samiti. You have no representative division at the sub-district level. No representative division whatsoever. And at the district level, you have something called Zilla Parishad. You have something called Zilla Parishad. Okay, understood? Now, basically, a couple of villages make a block, a couple of blocks make a subdivision, a couple of subdivisions make a district. All right, okay. Now, yes, permanent executive. Now, let's come to the next part. Okay. Now, urban. In urban, you have a two-layer setup. There is going to be nothing at the subdivision level and there's going to be nothing at the block level. Okay, nothing at the subdivision level and therefore nothing also at the block level. Now, at the town level, at the smaller urban unit level, you will have something called a ward. शहर है तो अंग्रेजी नाम रखेंगे ना accent के साथ ward, ठीक है? And then at the district level, at a higher level, depending on the size of the urban area. Okay, so if it is a small size, then it will be called a municipality. It will be called a municipality. If it is a medium size, it will be called a municipal council. And if it is a large or an extra large size, it will be called a municipal corporation. Okay, a municipal corporation. So this is largely how your local self-government is organized. Now, if there is a legislature there must also be an executive, which means there is going to be a rural elected executive and there is going to be an urban elected executive, and then of course you're going to have permanent executives. We'll further divide permanent executives into civil and police, because the more grassroots you get, the more diversified it can be, right? So how does this work? Very simple. All right. So, if this is your legislature, then you should also have an elected executive. So, if it's a small village, you're going to have a council of ministers and a PM. So, the prime minister of the Gram Sabha is called Sarpanch, and if it is a big village, you may want to have council of ministers as well. They are called Gram Panchayats. They are called Gram Panchayats. Okay. And similarly, Panchayat Samiti, you have head of Panchayat Samiti. And if it's a big block, you can have a Panchayat Samiti Council. Okay. If there is no representative division, there cannot be an elected executive as well, because we are in a parliamentary form of democracy. So that is out. Similarly, in urban also, this is going to be out. Okay. Are we clear on this? All right. Now, district also you have. So you have the head of the Zilla Parishad, and you can have the Zilla Parishad Council. Right? This is how it is done. Now, similarly, in the urban part, if ward is your legislature, then you will have a ward chairperson. And if you require a council, if it is a big ward, then a council. This can change from state to state. That is not compulsory. Okay. Now at the you don't have anything in the urban part at the block level, so you'll have nothing here also. And then you have urban directly at the district level, and therefore you have something called a mayor. And if it is a big council or a corporation, then you will have a mayor plus some councils. Okay, mayor plus some councils. Okay. So if you have the cabinet secretary and assisting the cabinet secretary, you'll have some secretaries. So home secretary, finance secretary, foreign secretary. At the state level, you will not have a foreign secretary. At the state level, you will not have a defense secretary. कि कट्टा बना रहे हैं promote करने के लिए. The more local you get, the more tangible your office divisions become, right? So similarly, at the district level, if you understand this carefully, we are going to look at the permanent executive, civil and police together. There are separate divisions though. So we'll start from the top. You've got the DM. The DM is like the chief secretary or the cabinet secretary of the district. And if they are assisted by secretaries, the DMs are also assisted by ADMs. So ADMs are actually people who work in the DM's office. So there is going to be ADM land, ADM law and order, ADM development, ADM welfare, ADM health, ADM women, ADM minorities, ऐसे करके, ठीक है? ADM. So ADMs and DMs are working at the district level. Then at the SDM level, you have SDM. Subdivision level, you have SDMs. And of course, you have assistant subdivisional magistrates. Similarly, at the block level, you have BDOs and you have assistant block development officers. SDM level पे भी होता है, you have ASDMs, who one of them will be land, law and order, etc. करके. And then at the village level, you will have tehsil related officers. Okay, Patwari, tehsil, etc. Okay, Ab, because it's the grassroots, it's the district, we have civil and policing powers which are differentiated. So here you will have SP and you will have DYSP at the district level. At subdivision, you will have SDPO and assisting SDPOs, and then here you will have an SHO in the police setup, and here you will have inspector grade or constabulary grade here itself, right? Now the interesting part is that if you notice very carefully, your career after you are done with your training and everything starts at the subdivision level, where those of you who become IS will become SDM, and your police counterparts are going to become STPOs. Okay, they're going to become STPOs. Clear? This is the magnificent structure of this beautiful country that we live in, from the president to the sarpanch, as I had told you. But let's not forget our beloved judiciary, so that you understand how this works. Okay, so you've got the Supreme Court here, you've got the High Court here, as you would know, and you see I've purposely not marked it up till here, because we have what is called an independent and an integrated judiciary. What is called an independent and an integrated judiciary. Now, both of these collectively are called higher judiciary. These are called higher judiciary. And they are appointed through a collegium process, which is basically a bunch of judges. Both of these are self-appointed. These are appointed by the judges for the judges. Then you have a district court, where the judge is called a DJ, a district judge, right? Now this, and then you have your lower judiciary. So anything district court and below is called lower judiciary. They are recruited by the states, and the interviews are actually taken by the High Court judges of the state. The High Courts are responsible for the management of all the other lower courts as well. So you have a district court, and then you have lower courts as well. So at the block level, at the subdivision level, you will see a civil court and a criminal court. A criminal court is also sometimes called a sessions court. Okay? And then you have the lowest court in this country. This is called the Gram Nyayalaya. This is called the Gram Nyayalaya. Okay, the Gram Nyayalaya. This entire ecosystem is the formal judicial system. You can start from the lowest court, go on appeal to the highest courts, right? Now, because the courts are extremely tedious, they're extremely complex, and a lot of times people are not able to get the justice at the right time, and sometimes the matters are not worthy of the attention of the courts. So sometimes you often have what are called informal courts or alternate disputes or alternates to the courts. So at the lowest level, you would have heard of something called a Lok Adalat. I'll write with a different thing so that it's easier. It's called a, for example, it is called a Lok Adalat. Now, a Lok Adalat is out of the formal court system. Only if both parties agree can they go to the Lok Adalat. Similarly, at the higher levels, between the Supreme Court and the High Court, parallelly here, you have the system of tribunals, right? Now, tribunals also have members of the permanent executive who get appointed, and of course, you have members of the judiciary. Now, some cases from tribunals go on appeal to the High Courts, some cases go to the Supreme Court, but tribunals are also forms of alternate dispute resolutions. Okay, so this is the larger ecosystem of the country. This is how they run. This is what the country has been established as. Okay? Understood this? Clear? So Lok Adalats, tribunals, these are alternate legal systems. All right? I'll give you about 3 minutes, 4 minutes. You can take a note of this and then we'll begin again. Take 3 minutes and take a note of this. All right. No, you cannot go against Lok Sabha decision, Nitin. In elected executive, can you explain after COM? Sure. A minister is the head of a big ministry like finance minister, home minister, agriculture minister, education minister. A minister of state is the second minister to a big ministry. So you'll have minister of state finance, minister of state education, minister of state agriculture. And then you have Minister of State Independent Charge, who's the head of a small ministry like Panchayati Raj, Tribal Affairs, Civil Aviation. Okay. C. Uh, Sessions court are only for criminal matters. Prashant. Harsh. C in SLC stands for cooperative societies. Okay. With other than indirect democracies. So for legislative assemblies, there are indirect democracies and direct elections, exactly like the Lok Sabha. Okay, exactly like Lok Sabha. Now, the purpose of me making you draw this entire table is that now you can visualize the entire country sitting at home. Everything in polity is the study of all the variables that we have mentioned here. Like, for example, if we understand this carefully, if the example is, say, elected members of the legislative assemblies choose members of the Rajya Sabha. The president is chosen by the MLAs, by the Lok Sabha MPs, and by the Rajya Sabha MPs, right? So we can draw these parallels. We can keep understanding this in the context. Okay, right? What is Karna? What is this question? I didn't understand anything special. Okay. Yes. For Supreme Court and High Courts, they are self-appointed. They're appointed through a process called a collegium. We will cover all of these details later on. Okay, so these are the broad ways. This is how you are able to successfully visualize what the country looks like from a larger perspective. Okay, understood this? Good. Now that we've understood this, let us now get into the maths behind polity, the numbers behind polity. Okay, we get into the maths behind polity, or we are going to get into the numbers behind polity. Okay, so let us start and we'll finish it accordingly. All right, so let us begin. We are now going to understand the concept of, we're going to now understand the concept of majorities. Now, don't be afraid, this can be slightly complex, but I will teach you this in a simplified form. What do we understand by majorities? So, forget about polity, forget about law, forget about the civil services. Let us talk about you, let us talk about individuals in a classroom. Okay? Now, as I can understand, all of you are members of the N batch, right? Okay, all right. Now, can anyone tell me when was the N batch started? When did the N batch start? Can anyone tell me? What is your approximate time of enrollment? When were your classes? When did your classes begin? Gram Sabha is the legislature, Gram Panchayat is the executive. August 5th. Got it. 5th August. Okay. Thank you. So let's say August. It's easier for us to understand August. All right. So your batches, batch started on 5th of August. Okay. Now this is important. All right. Thank you for letting me know. All right. 5th of August. Ab dekho, let's understand this. If 5th of August is the start date of your batch, that means on 5th of August, there would have been a number of students who would have enrolled, who would have taken an admission on the 5th of August, right? We are going to call this the total strength of N batch. Okay, the total strength of N batch, right? Now, let us say by the 20th of August, let us say about 100 students enrolled on 5th of August. Let us say a total of 100 students enrolled on the 5th of August. So the total strength is 100. Let us say by the 20th of August, about 20 students decided to withdraw from civil services prep or decided to withdraw their admission from the N batch. Okay. Now, this would have led to a specific strength. This strength became 80. Okay. This strength became 80. Let us call this the effective strength. Okay. The effective strength, because we are looking at 20 students who have withdrawn from the course. Okay. 20 students who have withdrawn from the course. Right. And today, as I can see, is the 15th of January 2022. Out of the 100 students, let us say today only 50 students are present in class. Okay. And let us say out of the 50 students who are present in class, there are only 50 who are present. I'm going to ask a question to the ones who are present in class. That do you think there should be do you think the civil services exam is a fair exam? Okay, if I ask that question, I'm going to ask it to the questions who are present, who are live attending the class. Now, out of those 50, let us say only 30 wanted to answer. 20 did not want to answer that question. Only 30 wanted to answer that question. So this 30 becomes present and voting. Okay. This becomes present and voting. Your parliamentary majorities also function in the same way. Your parliamentary majorities also function in the same way. The ground rule is tougher decisions will always require tougher majorities. Okay. So for example, if the first question that I ask you is right at the very start of your batches, do you think you should have polity first or economy first or geography first or history first? I mean, fresh students, brand new, and let's say, do you want a strategy session first, right? The best people to ask that question would be the total number of students who have joined on 5th of August, because this is the question we're asking very early on, right? So, good, makes sense. But then I ask you a question, do you think X teacher is a good teacher or not? Or do you want to replace an X teacher with another teacher? Should I ask the students who have left? No. If you have not been taught by the teacher, then you have no business telling us whether the teacher is good or not. So I should then probably ask only the ones who have been attending classes, only the ones who are actually enrolled in a batch. Whether they attend the class live or not doesn't matter. As long as they're consuming the information given by the teacher, they have a right to judge the teacher. They have the right to have an information. They have the right to have an informed opinion on the teacher. Right? So, we will ask those questions here. But if I have to ask a question, do you think I can take 15 minutes extra today? Then I will only ask the people who are present and attending live. And only those who respond, I will take their opinion into account. A lot of the people might not just even respond also. They don't care. You teach 15 minutes more, you teach 15 minutes less, you teach 1 hour more, you teach 1 hour less. We are sitting at home only. Arey Baba, if you're sitting at home only, then we don't need to ask anybody. Right? So it is on the basis of this, parliamentary majorities are formed, ladies and gentlemen. It's that simple. Parliamentary majorities is nothing but figuring out who to ask what question from. Okay? Who to ask what question from. Understood? Right? Good. So if you understand this, can we look at something else? Can we apply this to something else? All right? So let us see. Now let's apply these majorities to parliamentary majorities. Now we apply these to parliamentary majorities. The same concept to parliamentary majorities. Now, parliamentary majorities are applicable both to the parliament as well as the legislatures of the country. Now, these legislatures can include the state legislatures also, and those union territories, those 3 union territories which have legislatures. Okay? Understood? So, in parliamentary majorities, if you understand this carefully, you basically get, now very important, you get the power to say yes, you get the power to say no, and you also have the power to be present on the parliament's floor, to be present in the assembly and decide to not vote. If you're present and you've decided to not vote, then this is also called abstain. Okay, or abstention. This is a common feature across all parliamentary systems. This is a common feature across all democratic systems, whether it is the Security Council or the IMF or the Parliament or the legislatures. Now you would have a question, sir, why would we allow an MP and MLA to be present and not vote? Because voting is the job of the MP and the Parliament. If somebody has taken the grand effort to come to Parliament, and you know what the attendance of our beloved MPs and MLAs are, if they've taken the grand effort to come to the Parliament, why are you allowing them to not vote? Because as much as this is a legal question, this is also an ethical question. And the answer to that ethical question is a very simple one, and I'll explain this through a simple example. Let us say we are talking hypothetically about the voting of farm laws in the Lok Sabha. Okay, the voting of farm laws in the Lok Sabha. Let us assume the farm laws have not been passed, they have not been repealed, they are being voted for the first time. And you are a BJP MP from the state of Punjab who seems to have the highest amount of objection to the farm laws. Now, if you vote yes to the farm laws, no doubt you will prove your loyalty to the BJP, but you will betray the constituency which has elected you as an MP. So that is a problem. But if you vote no, no doubt you will uphold the trust of the constituency, the people of your constituency, but you will betray the very hand that cradled you. The very hand for UPSC essay that rocked your cradle. The very hand under whose patronage you were able to become an MP in the first place. हाँ बोलेंगे तो दिक्कत है, ना बोलेंगे तो दिक्कत है. So what is the best way to go about it? The best way to go about it is silence. When we will study the freedom of speech and expression, you will also understand if you have the right to freedom of speech, if you have the freedom of expression, you also have the freedom of silence. And because you have the freedom of silence, you are decided, you can happily decide to not vote. Similarly, in Security Council also, you will often notice that China, a lot of times, abstains from a lot of votes in the Security Council against Pakistan. Or Russia, a lot of times, abstains from votes against, say, Iran or Iraq for that matter. Okay? Because of some bilateral partnerships. So we are clear with this? We understand this? So this is why you have the powers to say vote yes or no for that matter. Okay? Now, there are going to broadly be two kinds of majorities. Okay? And I'll first draw a graph of the majority so that you understand how this works. Okay? The graph of the majority is this. The graph will start from here, go here, and then will again go here. Okay? Now, this graph can be divided into two parts. Okay? One half of your majorities will use the fraction more than half, and the second half of the graph, the second type of majorities are going to use the fraction more than 2/3. Okay? So more than half and more than 2/3. And this is going to be from tough to easy and from easy to tough. Okay, this is the graph of majorities. Tough to easy, easy to tough. So what is going to happen is you are going to see something called absolute majority. We'll discuss each of these. Then you are going to see effective majority. Okay, absolute majority. You are going to then see effective majority, and after effective majority, you are then going to see simple majority. All of them are going to use more than half of a figure. From simple majority, again we go up. You will see special majority 1, slightly tougher than simple, but still very easy. Then you will see special majority 2, you will see special majority 3, and you will see special majority 4, and you will see special majority 4. Okay, and this is how things get tougher. Okay, so this is the larger graph of what are called simple to tough majorities. Okay, simple to tough majorities. Okay, understood? Now, let's start from one end. We'll keep plotting them on the graph as and when we get to it, and it will be very easy for you to understand. Okay? Chaliye. So let us look at all the majorities which use more than half as your figure. We've got basically three kinds of such majorities. The first majority is called an absolute majority. The second is called effective majority. Now your Lakshmikant and books can often get this part wrong, so you have to pay a little bit of attention here. And these are called simple majorities. Okay? Now, let's understand by each of these what do they mean, what are the different ways that can be used, and so on and so forth. So first things first, absolute majority is a political majority. Absolute majority is a political majority. It is only and only used to establish majority in the lower houses. To only and only used to establish majority in the lower houses, which means it is used only and only in the Lok Sabha and also in the state legislative assemblies. This also by extension has started to be used in local self-government, in your Gram Sabhas and in your block panchayat samitis and your zilla parishads as well. But from a parliamentary point of view, they're primarily being used in the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies. Okay. Now the figure here is a very simple one. The figure here is more than half of the total strength of that specific house. Okay. More than half of the total strength of that specific house. So for example, in the Lok Sabha, the total strength that was guaranteed is 545. It is going to be 543 in the 2024 Lok Sabha because we have eliminated Anglo-Indian nominations. So basically, more than half of 545, which is approximately 273. This means, and I'll take you to the board. This means whichever party or a combination of parties is able to get minimum 273 MLAs belonging to that combination or that single party, they will be able to decide who gets to be a minister. They will be able to decide who gets to be a minister. This does not mean that the ministers will necessarily come from the Lok Sabha. No, it simply means that the party who has a majority in the Lok Sabha, they will decide who the ministers are going to be. The ministers can come from the Rajya Sabha as well. For example, Jai Shankar, who's the current Foreign Affairs Minister, is a member of the Rajya Sabha. But he gets to be the Foreign Affairs Minister because he comes from the BJP and the BJP wants him to be the Foreign Affairs Minister, and the BJP has more than 273 seats in the current Lok Sabha. Absolute majority gives you the power to decide who is going to be a minister. You can decide whether a Lok Sabha MP or a Rajya Sabha MP. Doesn't matter elected, doesn't matter nominated. Anyone that you decide can become a minister. There's absolutely no problem with it whatsoever. Okay, this is extremely important, right? So this is what is called absolute majority. For example, we are currently in the 17th Lok Sabha, which started from 2019, is going to go on till 2024. And in the 17th Lok Sabha, the BJP alone has won 303 seats. The BJP was actually a part of a coalition called the National Democratic Alliance, but this coalition is sort of pointless right now because the BJP alone has 303 seats in the current Lok Sabha. Alright, 303 seats in the current Lok Sabha. So, this is called an absolute majority. It is to establish majority in the local houses. Alright, this is called absolute majority. It is only used at the time of government formation. It is only used to establish authority to decide who the ministers are going to be or not. Okay, at the time of it. after the elections when you're deciding to form government. Okay, so this is called. Thank you, Nitin. Thank you. It's very kind of you. So, at the time of government formation. Now, let's come to effective majority. See, what did we use the example for as far as effective majority was concerned? Here we said we wanted to ask the students on teacher feedback, right? We wanted to ask the students on teacher feedback, correct? Now, if we wanted to ask the students on teacher feedback, then only those students who are a part of the batch should be able to answer that question. Doesn't matter whether you are live or not. That does not matter at all. आपने रिकॉर्डेड देखा होगा आपका तब भी उतना ही हक है ये बताना कि टीचर अच्छा है कि नहीं. तो अगर क्लासरूम में टीचर है तो भाई हाउसेज में प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर्स हैं, स्पीकर, डेप्टी स्पीकर, चेयरपर्सन, डेप्टी चेयरपर्सन, ऐसे करके, राइट? सो effective majority only and only has one simple rule. Firstly, it is only and only used to remove presiding officers of the houses. अब सारे हाउसेस के प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर्स एक तरफ, सिर्फ एक हाउस का एक प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर एक तरफ. सो दिस इज यूज्ड टू रिमूव ऑल प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर्स ऑफ द लोकसभा, व्हिच मींस स्पीकर एंड डेप्टी स्पीकर, all presiding officers of the state legislative assemblies, same speaker, deputy speaker, union territories with legislative assemblies, also for state legislative councils, and now comes the tough part, the Rajya Sabha part, can be fully used to remove the vice chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, and is only used partially. ये सिर्फ आधी ही इस्तेमाल होती है टू पार्शली रिमूव द राज्यसभा चेयरपर्सन हु हैपन्स टू बी द वाइस प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया. ठीक है, तो ये थोड़ा ध्यान से रखना है. इफेक्टिव मेजॉरिटी एज इट इज पूरी तरह से यूज होती है सारे प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर्स को निकालने के लिए एक्सेप्ट द चेयरपर्सन ऑफ द राज्यसभा, because the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha is the vice president of India. उसके अलावा whether it is the chairperson, vice chairperson of legislative councils, speaker, deputy speaker of the Lok Sabha, speaker, deputy speaker of the assemblies, speaker, deputy speaker of union territories with assemblies, or even the vice chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, all of them are removed through effective majority. But the vice president is first removed through effective majority in the Rajya Sabha, and then the Lok Sabha also participates. In this, both houses participates. In all of the others, only the house that they're a presiding officer of, they remove. ठीक है, तो ये हमेशा ध्यान रखना है कि ये क्या होता है. ठीक है, और ये क्यों होता है कि भाई अगर आप उस हाउस में रहे ही नहीं हो, आप उस हाउस के पार्ट ही नहीं हो, तो फिर आप कैसे बताओगे कि स्पीकर अच्छा इंसान है, खराब इंसान है, कि स्पीकर ने आपके साथ बदतमीजी करी है कि नहीं करी है, कि स्पीकर ने आपके साथ अनफेयरली ट्रीट किया है कि नहीं किया है, कि स्पीकर ने कोई अनबायस्ड या बायस्ड डिसीजन दिया है कि नहीं दिया है. यू हैव टू बी अ मेंबर ऑफ द हाउस, यू हैव टू बी एन एक्टिव पार्ट ऑफ द हाउस, राइट? सो दैट इज व्हाई इफेक्टिव मेजॉरिटी is hugely dependent on effective strength. So effective strength क्या होती है? Effective strength is nothing but the total strength minus the three worst things that can happen to an MP or an MLA. तीन सबसे बुरी चीजें जो एक MP और MLA के साथ हो सके. पहला तो वो मरी गए, डेथ. दूसरा, दे हैव बीन डिस्क्वालिफाइड, उनको निकाल दिया, या फिर वो खुद ही निकल गए, रिजाइन कर दिया, राइट? सो Effective strength is nothing but total strength minus number of died, disqualified और resigned MP, और उस effective strength का more than half of the effective strength of that particular house. That is how you will remove all presiding officers of all houses except the Vice President of India. इसमें थोड़ा और लगता है. When we study the Vice President, I will teach this in detail to you. ठीक है? बाकी इन सब के लिए ये एक सिंपल majority लगती है सबके लिए. Alright? So effective majority. Understood? Simple. Up, for example, let us say, let's do some maths. Let us say, we'll do maths on the fresh page. Let us say we are talking about the Lok Sabha and we want to remove the Lok Sabha speaker. We want to remove the Lok Sabha speaker. Let's say the current strength of the Lok Sabha is 543. Okay. Out of which, let us say, there are 20 MPs who have died. Let us say there are another 3 MPs who have resigned. And let us say there are another 20 MPs who have been disqualified. कुछ तो इन्होंने कांड किए होंगे. They have been disqualified. Total, how many have been DDR'd? 43. So, what is your effective strength? Your effective strength is going to be 543 minus 43, that is 500. Now your effective majority is going to be, more than half of 500, which is 251. मतलब इस केस में you would require minimum 251 votes to remove the Lok Sabha speaker. ताकि कोई फालतू में भी निकाल पाए, ताकि कोई फालतू में ना निकाल पाए और कोई फालतूपने में इनको छोड़ ना सके. ठीक है, कोई फालतू में ना निकाल पाए और कोई फालतू जना इनको पार्टिसिपेट इनके प्रोसेस में ना कर सके. ठीक है, सो दिस इज हाउ effective majority functions. This is the basic principle of what is called effective majority. Okay, the basic principle of what is called effective majority. Okay, done. ठीक है, अब नाम ही में सिंपल है तो क्यों परेशान होना है. सिंपल मतलब जितने आए हैं आज, जितने वोट कर रहे हैं, उसमें से जिन्होंने हाँ बोला वो सिंपल मेजॉरिटी. सो सिंपल मेजॉरिटी इज यूज्ड फॉर इन ऑल हाउसेस. सारे हाउसेस में इस्तेमाल होते हैं. लोकसभा, राज्यसभा, स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबलीज, स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव काउंसिल्स, हर जगह इस्तेमाल होते हैं. नो क्वेश्चंस एट ऑल. ठीक है, एंड दे आर यूज्ड फॉर 2 बेसिक पर्पसेस. फर्स्ट, दे आर यूज्ड टू पास लॉज which are not constitutional amendments. ठीक है, अगर वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट नहीं है तो वो सिंपल मेजॉरिटी से पास होगा. एंड सेकंड, फॉर ऑल पार्लियामेंट्री मोशंस, no confidence motion, censure motion, adjournment motion, calling attention motion, short discussion motion, long discussion motion, short discuss motion, motion ही motion होगा तो सिंपल मेजॉरिटी लगेगा. बस नाम के आगे मोशन होना चाहिए, सिंपल मेजॉरिटी लगेगा, चाहे पार्लियामेंट हो चाहे स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर हो, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता। सिंपल मेजॉरिटी मतलब एक नॉर्मल कानून जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को ना बदले एंड नाम के आगे मोशन हो, दैट इज ऑल दैट मैटर्स। सिंपल मेजॉरिटी वही लगती है। In fact, simple majority happens to be your default majority. मतलब, if it is not mentioned what kind of a majority in a non-constitutional sense, then please assume it is called a default majority. Okay? Okay? Understood this? Right? Now, simple majority is, this is how it is. Your mathematical calculation is more than half of those who are present and voting, because those who are present and not voting are abstaining. So more than half of present and voting is your simple majority. All right. नहीं, डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन टेम्पररी क्यों हुआ भाई? इससे किससे बोला? वो सस्पेंशन टेम्पररी होता है। ठीक है, सो दीज आर योर हाफ मेजॉरिटीज। अब आप नोटिस करोगे, इफ यू प्लॉट देम ऑन द ग्राफ, व्हाट आर यू एबल टू सी? इफ यू प्लॉट देम ऑन द ग्राफ, यू आर एबल टू सी समथिंग वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग। एब्सोल्यूट का क्या मतलब हुआ? मोर देन हाफ ऑफ टोटल स्ट्रेंथ। इफेक्टिव क्या हुआ? मोर देन हाफ ऑफ इफेक्टिव स्ट्रेंथ। इट विल बी अ सबसेट, एंड इन सबका सबसेट क्या होगा? मोर देन हाफ ऑफ प्रेजेंट एंड वोटिंग। अब भाई जो मर गए हैं वो प्रेजेंट तो हो ही नहीं सकते, जिनको डिस्क्वालीफाई कर दिए, जिन्होंने रिजाइन कर दिया, अब का उनका भूत थोड़ी ना आएगा हाउस में, राइट? सो एज यू सी द ग्राफ इज गोइंग डाउन। अब नीचे जा रही है तो जिंदगी की तरह उभरेगी भी, ऊपर भी आएगी। So we have to figure that part out also. So we have absolute, effective and simple, and from absolute, effective and simple we are then going to move to the other forms of relay. ठीक है, the other forms of relay. चलिए इसको करते हैं अच्छे से. Let's understand this as clearly as we can, as simply as we can. Okay, understood this? चलिए, now we move to special majorities. Now in special majorities, if you understand this carefully, the basic difference is that of the fraction, 2/3. Now the first question is, why is there a fractional difference? Why are we looking at more than 2/3? It's because this is symbolic. We are using a higher fraction because directly or indirectly it is going to affect the federal structure or institutions or functionaries of the country. Okay? कहीं ना कहीं वो सेंटर स्टेट पे इम्पैक्ट जरूर डालने वाला है. कहीं ना कहीं it is going to have a center state impact, which is why we need to qualify this, showcase this with more than 2/3 of present and voting. ठीक है? So let's understand this. Let's try and get this right, and let us see how far and how well can we go about this. ठीक है? तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं. Let's get this right. Let's sort this out. Right? Now, पहली बात तो मैं क्लियर कर देता हूँ. I thought I'll tell this later to you, but मैं भी बता देता हूँ. That these terms that we are referring to, है ना? Absolute, effective, simple, special majority 1, special majority 2, special majority 3. These words are not mentioned in the constitution. ये लक्ष्मीकांत चचा की देन है, तो सब 10 सालों से यही चिपकाए पड़े घूम रहे हैं. The Constitution only and only mentions the procedure. It says, for example, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha can only be removed by a majority of the then members of the House, or for example, a no confidence motion can only be passed with a majority of the members, by a majority of the members present and voting. वो ऐसे लिखते हैं. इसलिए in the prelims exam you will never see any of these terms ever mentioned. In the prelims exam you will never see any of these terms ever mentioned. Okay, never ever will you see these terms which are mentioned. Okay, all right, चलिए next part. So when we use the word special 1 2 3 4, ये हमारी इनोवेशन है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में कहीं नहीं लिखा हुआ है. This is something you must very clearly and categorically understand. So we've got basically 4 kinds of majorities. Special majority 1, special majority 2, we've got special majority 3, we've got special majority 4. ठीक है, बहुत ध्यान से देखते हैं. कैलकुलेशंस कॉम्प्लेक्स है लेकिन कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं. So, as you know, as you see in the graph, this is going to go from easy to tough, and absolute to simple was tough to easy. ये जो हमारा था, ये था tough to easy. The next part is going to be easy to tough. The next part is going to be easy to tough. So special majority 1, ये क्या होता है, कैसे होता है? Let's understand this clearly. So special majority 1, बहुत clearly मैं बता देता हूँ, is only used either in the Rajya Sabha or in the state legislative assemblies. ये सिर्फ 2 ही जगह यूज होती है. Why? Because both of them will have a federal impact. Rajya Sabha is in fact chosen by the MLAs of that specific state. इस मेजॉरिटी को हम प्यार से रेसोल्यूशन मेजॉरिटी या परमिशन मेजॉरिटी भी कहते हैं. ठीक है, रेसोल्यूशन मेजॉरिटी या परमिशन मेजॉरिटी भी कहते हैं. राइट, नाउ लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड ये कहां इस्तेमाल होती है, कैसे इस्तेमाल होती है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, द राज्यसभा has certain special powers because of the fact that it has been chosen by the states. Suppose you want to authorize the parliament to make a law on something which is in the state list. You want to authorize the parliament to make a law on something which is on the state list. Parliament ordinarily नहीं कर सकते. Suppose you want to add or subtract an all India service. Suppose you want to add or subtract an all India service. Suppose there are certain emergencies that you may have to approve. Yeah, when the time is right, I'll give you the exact articles, so don't worry about it. Right? या फिर if the state assembly is requesting कि हमको ना एक लेजिस्लेटिव काउंसिल बनाना है, तो पार्लियामेंट बनाएगा लेकिन रिक्वेस्ट लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली से आएगी. सो दीज आर द 3-4 एरियाज वेयर स्पेशल मेजॉरिटी 1 is often used. Okay, where special majority 1 is often used. Okay, and the basic maths is more than 2/3 of present and voting. बस और कुछ नहीं. More than 2/3 of present and voting. That is it. This is your special majority one. It is mostly used only in the Lok Sabha, in the Rajya Sabha and the legislative assemblies, and these are, colloquially called resolution or permission majorities. This is the kind of majority that we would use. ठीक है? All right. Now, special majority 2. Special majority 2 is only used in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. It is not used at states or, for that matter, union territories. Not at all. Only Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. ठीक है. अब यहाँ क्या होता है? See, special majority 2 is used only for 2 reasons. The first reason is to pass a specific type of constitutional amendments. Constitutional amendment भी 2 तरह के होते हैं. We'll discuss after this part. A specific type of those amendments, and 2, to remove certain key functionaries, to remove certain key offices such as Supreme Court Judge, High Court Judge, CAG, है ना, ऐसे करके. And see, all of them will have a federal impact. The Supreme Court decides on center-state disputes. High Court judges are the highest judicial authorities of the state. CAG gets to audit center and state. So कहीं ना कहीं एक federal impact जरूर है. ठीक है? This is where you use special majority 2. Now the calculation of special majority 2 is slightly difficult. The calculation of special majority 2 is slightly difficult. थोड़ा सा ध्यान देना पड़ेगा. ठीक है? क्या है? Let's understand this. बेसिक फंडा ये है कि इतना वोट आए, लेकिन कम से कम इतना वोट तो आना ही चाहिए. दैट्स द बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट बिहाइंड स्पेशल majority 2. So it is for each specific house, more than 2/3 of present and voting in such a way that this more than 2/3 of present and voting is more than half of the total strength of that specific house. That more than half of the total strength of that specific house. ठीक है? More than 2/3 of present and voting in such a way that it is more than half of the total strength of that specific house. ठीक है? ये फॉर्मूला से नहीं समझ में आएगा, ये एग्जाम्पल से समझ में आएगा. ठीक है? सो लेट अस से वी हैव टू रिमूव अ सुप्रीम कोर्ट जज. ठीक है? ओनली एंड ओनली द पार्लियामेंट कैन डू सो, एंड बोथ हाउसेस, लोक सभा एंड राज्य सभा, विल सेपरेटली सिट एंड वोट. ठीक है? And they will use what is called special majority 2. They will use what is called special majority 2. ठीक है? अब let us take the case of Lok Sabha. Let us say the maximum strength for Lok Sabha or the current total strength of the Lok Sabha, assume करते हैं 545. ठीक है? Let us assume that the total strength is 545. ठीक है? Let us say today the house is in session. Today is, as I said, the 15th of January 2022. And let us say, out of 545 people, let us say 360 MPs are present. And out of the 360 MPs, only and only, let us say, 270 MPs have decided to vote on the Supreme Court judge removal. बाकी ने कहा कि बाकी के 90 MPs ने कहा कि हम चिल करेंगे, हम वोट नहीं करना चाहते. सॉरी, So your present and voting strength is 270. Now let us apply special majority. So special majority 2 through an example is this. So more than 2/3 on present and voting. ये क्या नंबर हुआ? More than 2/3 of 270, because your present and voting strength is this, not this. ठीक है? So 3 9s are 27, 0, 180. Okay? Now our more than 2/3 of present and voting strength is 180. This strength, this 180 strength should be more than half of the total strength of that house, which in this case is the Lok Sabha. And half of the total strength of the house is half of 545, which is 273. And clearly 180 is less than 273. So ये पास नहीं होगा. ठीक है? ये पास नहीं होगा, because this number is less. Similarly, if let us say out of 545 MPs, there were 500 MPs who were present and 480 MPs decided to vote as well. So your present and voting strength would have been 480. So what is more than 2/3 of 480? 3 1s are 3, 3 6s are 18, 16 3s are 48. This is 320. This strength is more than 273. In this case, the Supreme Court judge would have been removed. Okay. This stage, the Supreme Court judge would have been removed. So this is called special majority 2. ठीक है? This is called special majority 2. Clear? All right. Now let's come to special majority 3. थोड़ा सा complicated है, but ज़्यादा मुश्किल नहीं है. Special majority 3 is an extension to special majority 2. तो आधा काम तो same ही है. So special majority 3 basically has 2 steps. Step 1 and step 2, or phase 1, phase 2. Special majority 3 is only and only used for one purpose, for a specific type of constitutional amendments. For a specific type of constitutional amendments. ठीक है? So let's understand what this is. Let us solve this. ठीक है? So let's look at it. Step 1. Step 1, only and only in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And step 2, across all state legislative assemblies, including union territories with legislatures. State legislative councils में ये नहीं लगता because they are not uniform. Okay? Step 2, only after step 1, and step 2 is for all legislative assemblies including union territories with legislatures. That means 28 states plus 3 union territories, total 31 legislatures. ठीक है? Total 31 legislatures में ये जाएगा. Alright? Are we clear? Okay? Now ऑफ कोर्स डिपेंड करेगा नितिन. चलिए, लेट्स लुक एट दिस फ्रॉम अ सिंपल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. सो जो स्टेप 1 है, it is exactly the same. It is exactly the same as special majority 2. Exactly the same. Exactly the same. मतलब more than 2/3 of present and voting in such a way that it is more than half of the total strength of the house. ये लोकसभा में बिल पास होगा, ये राज्यसभा में बिल पास होगा. It will be passed using this specific majority. Now once both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha separately, they will never sit together because otherwise the numbers will always be in favor of the Lok Sabha, will separately pass using special majority 2, right? The same bill will be sent to all 31 legislatures. अगर नहीं होंगे तो बोलेंगे स्पेशल सेशन बुला के एक काम के लिए आ जाओ, ठीक है. Will be sent to all 31 legislatures. And out of these 31 legislatures, half of the legislatures, मतलब 16 legislatures, कोई भी 16, दिल्ली, कर्नाटका, बंगाल, गुजरात मिला के कोई भी 16, आसाम, मणिपुर, नागालैंड, यूपी, महाराष्ट्र, कोई भी 16, any 16 will have to pass the same law but using simple majority. Pass the same law using simple majority. जैसे जीएसटी था, पहले सेंटर ने पास करा, then at least 16 states, 16 legislatures out of 31, more than half, have to pass the same thing but with a very easy majority called simple majority. तो जब ये दोनों काम हो जाए, this is called special majority 3. This is called special majority 3. ठीक है, special majority 3. Then you have special majority 4. Now special majority 4 again is used only in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. They use this separately, never together. Okay, always separately, and only here. It is not used anywhere in the states at all, and it is only used for one and one purpose only. ये मुश्किल नहीं है because the maths is very high number, but it is very easy. It is to remove or to impeach the honorable President of India. प्रेसिडेंट साहब को निकालने के लिए सिर्फ ये इस्तेमाल होती है, ठीक है. एंड दिस मेजॉरिटी हियर इज एन एक्सट्रीमली टफ मेजॉरिटी. दिस मेजॉरिटी इज more than 2/3 of the total strength of that specific house. Is more than 2/3 of the total strength of that specific house. More than 2/3 of the total strength of that specific house. ठीक है? Clear on this? So I'll put the slide back. If you just plot it, you will see how our graph was right all along. So here it is more than 2/3 of present and voting. Here it is more than 2/3 of present and voting. In such a way, it is basically greater than absolute majority, है ना? उससे ज़्यादा नंबर आने चाहिए. So if you see that number has to always be greater. तो एक तरह से देखा जाए, and when we really draw this graph properly and we plot it accordingly, then your special majority 2, special 3 and special 4 actually will come here, because special 2 is more than 2/3 of present and voting. In such a way, it is greater than absolute majority, which is more than half of the total strength. Here it is special majority 2 plus a half of your legislatures. This process is called state ratification. This process is called state ratification. The process of more than half of the number of states, right? Okay, plus a state ratification, and this, of course, is more than two-thirds of the. This is more than two-thirds of the total strength of that house. So this is what your graph looks like. ठीक है. सिंपल majority पीर लिखा है मेरे यहाँ पे. ठीक है. Clear? Understood? So all right. Now you can take about. Are we clear on this? All right. Okay. All right. You can take a 5-minute break. Copy all of this if you want to, and then we'll take it up. All right. Nitin, quantitatively, yes, but in terms of just the comparison of numbers of the parliament, then special majority would be more. अजय, सेपरेटली पापा, सेपरेटली, हर जगह सेपरेट लिखा है. Separately. All right. Okay. Now we are done with this. Yes, we are done with this. I'll show you the graph slide also, no problem at all. This is the graph slide. Okay. All right. Now we will understand the application of majorities to law making in India. कि भाई इस देश में कानून बनते कैसे हैं, नहीं बनते, क्यों नहीं बनते हैं, all of that. Okay. Special majority 4 has nothing to do with the state. Only center. चलिए, इस देश में there are basically two and only two kinds of laws which exist in the country. दो तरह के कानून बनते हैं, दो तरह के कानून हैं, है ना. हम बोलते हैं ना, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एक तरफ और सारी दुनिया एक तरफ. So similarly like that. Okay, there are basically two kinds of laws, two kinds of legislative processes that happen. Okay, first here and second here. Okay, first here and second here. I'll just draw this properly so that it's easy. Okay, two kinds of it. Pehla, when you are changing the constitution, anything which you are changing the constitution, you are changing the constitution. Okay, or you're changing any other law. You're adding a new law, bringing a new law. So, any other law, you might be changing it, or you might be bringing in something new. That's okay. Okay? Either you're changing it, or you might be bringing something new. Now, if you change a law, it is called an amendment. So if you change the constitution, it should be called a constitutional amendment. लेकिन ऐसा नहीं है. खेल ब्रांडिंग का है. स्कूल डीपीएस होना चाहिए, मॉडर्न तो जमाना भी है. स्कूल डीपीएस होना चाहिए, मॉडर्न तो जमाना भी है. जूस ट्रॉपिकाना होना चाहिए, रियल तो इंसान भी है ना? So in the same way, all amendments to the constitution are not called constitutional amendments. All amendments to the constitution are not called constitutional amendments. Only those amendments which change those parts of the constitution which are mentioned in Article 368. ये थोड़े serious type के amendments हैं. Only those are called constitutional amendments. Everything else is called an act. So if you're changing the constitution, you're amending the constitution, this basically means when you are changing the constitution, you are amending the constitution. This basically means you're either amending something in the constitution under 368, or you're amending something in the constitution which is outside Article 368. Outside Article 368. तो इसका क्या मतलब हुआ? Either you are amending the constitution under 368, or you are amending the constitution outside Article 368. ठीक है? बेसिक फर्क ये हुआ. ठीक है? Now, क्या मतलब हुआ इसका? That these are amendments which are amendments to those articles of the constitution or those schedules of the constitution which are mentioned in Article 368. Mentioned in Article 368. And the other is, you're changing those articles or those schedules to the constitution which are not mentioned in Article 368. ठीक है? अब ध्यान से देखिएगा, 368 में भी दो तरीके के हैं. ठीक है? 368 में भी दो तरीके हैं. So there are basically two kinds of constitutional amendments under आर्टिकल 368 दो तरह के होते हैं, एक जो फेडरलिज्म को बहुत ज्यादा इंपैक्ट करते हैं, ओके, सिवियरली ये बहुत क्लियरली लिखा हुआ है कि किस में क्या लगेगा, किस में क्या नहीं लगेगा। सिवियर इंपैक्ट ऑन फेडरलिज्म, और इसमें नो सिवियर इंपैक्ट ऑन फेडरलिज्म। ये कानून में क्लियरली लिखा हुआ है कि कौन सा इंपैक्ट होगा, कौन सा नहीं होगा, बहुत क्लियरली लिखा हुआ है, बहुत क्लियरली, ठीक है, अंडरस्टूड दिस। जैसे कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ यू आर चेंजिंग द इलेक्शन प्रोसेस ऑफ द प्रेसिडेंट, if you are changing Supreme Court, High Court appointment removal processes, okay, आप सेंटर स्टेट रिलेशंस में कोई चेंज ला रहे हो, लेजिस्लेटिव रिलेशंस, एग्जीक्यूटिव रिलेशंस, आप 368 में ही बदलाव ला रहे हो, यू आर चेंजिंग Article 368 itself. Okay, 368 itself. Then it is a constitutional amendment under Article 368, but of a very very special kind. अब वो special kind क्या होगा? वो special kind ये होगा that you will require special majority 3 for these kind of amendments. This is constitutional amendment under Article 368 with state ratification. Special majority 3. बाकी सब के लिए, if it is under 368 but is not having a severe impact, then it would be a constitutional amendment under Article 368 without state ratification, और इसको हम स्पेशल majority 2 भी कहते हैं, ठीक है। उसके आगे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट तभी लगेगा इफ इट इज कमिंग आउट ऑफ 368, ठीक है। बट इफ इट इज नॉट कमिंग आउट ऑफ 368, क्लियरली लिखा है दिस इज नॉट एन अमेंडमेंट, विल नॉट बी कंसिडर्ड एन अमेंडमेंट टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अंडर 368, तो चुपचाप भैया सिंपल मेजॉरिटी, इनको हम कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट बोलेंगे भी नहीं, इतनी इज्जत ही नहीं है इनकी, ठीक है, बोलेंगे ही नहीं, इनको हम सिंपली एक्ट बोलेंगे, एक्ट, विल सिंपली कॉल देम एन एक्ट, ठीक है, विल सिंपली कॉल देम एन एक्ट, ठीक है। अब ध्यान से देखना, इफ यू आर चेंजिंग द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, ठीक है, आप एक आर्टिकल चेंज करने वाले हो, या तो आर्टिकल में क्लियरली लिखा होगा कि दिस इज एन अमेंडमेंट विद स्टेट रेटिफिकेशन, या तो लिखा होगा इट विल नॉट बी कंसिडर्ड एन अमेंडमेंट एट ऑल। अगर दोनों नहीं लिखा है तो आप अज्यूम ये करोगे, योर डिफॉल्ट मेजॉरिटी फॉर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल चेंजेस इज स्पेशल मेजॉरिटी 2। अगर नहीं लिखा है कैसे बदलना है उस आर्टिकल को, उस शेड्यूल को, वो 368 के अंदर नहीं दिया हुआ है, या वो भी क्लियरली नहीं लिखा है कि ये तो अमेंडमेंट ही नहीं है, तो आप अज्यूम करोगे स्पेशल मेजॉरिटी 2, ठीक है, स्पेशल मेजॉरिटी 2। नाउ इफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से कोई लेना देना ही नहीं, कोई भी सिविल लॉ, कोई भी क्रिमिनल लॉ, इंडियन पीनल कोड, इंसॉल्वेंसी, बैंक्रप्सी, जुवेनाइल जस्टिस, कंपनीज एक्ट, कुछ भी, ठीक है। इस देश में ब्रॉडली there are essentially 3 kinds of laws that are made. 3 kinds of laws. ऐसी चीजें जिनके लिए सिर्फ पैसा लगता है, उसको करने के लिए सिर्फ पैसा लगता है, ठीक है, कोई ऐसी चीज जो कुछ नया आइडिया है लेकिन उस नया आइडिया के लिए पैसा लग रहा है, ये एग्जिस्टिंग आइडिया के लिए पैसा लग रहा है, दिस इज ए न्यू आइडिया विच विल रिक्वायर सम मनी। और कोई एक ऐसी चीज जिसमें पैसा नहीं लगना है, सिर्फ नया आइडिया है, इट इज इसेंशली ए न्यू आइडिया, इट इज जस्ट अ चेंज विच डज नॉट रिक्वायर मनी। ठीक है, इनको हम मनी बिल कहते हैं, इनको हम सब डिटेल में करेंगे बाद में, फाइनेंशियल बिल कहते हैं, और जो बचा कुचा इसे हम ऑर्डिनरी बिल कहते हैं। ठीक है, एंड ऑर्डिनरी बिल, ठीक है, ये बेसिक फर्क है। गेम ये है कि बॉस, if it is not an amendment to the constitution under article 368, आप इस देश में ऐसा कोई भी कानून बना रहे हो जो 368 में लिखी हुई चीजों के दायरे से बाहर है, तो भैया चुपचाप सिंपल मेजॉरिटी, यहां सब के बाहर नथिंग एल्स but simple majority. Okay, nothing else but simple majority. इतना आसान है पॉलिटी, ठीक है, इतना आसान है। Now let's take some examples. एग्जाम्पल से आपको क्लियर हो जाएगा। जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल let us say for example, I want to change the way Supreme Court judges are appointed. ठीक है, मुझे कोलिजियम सिस्टम बंद करना है and I want to set up an independent body called the National Judicial Appointments Commission. Now, is it going to change the constitution? Yes, because collegium is mentioned here. Is it a serious enough change to the constitution? Yes. Is it going to affect federalism? Yes, because Supreme Court, High Court appointments are affected. So therefore, we had passed the 99th constitutional amendment, which was called the National Judicial Appointments Commission. इसको हमने बाद में Supreme Court declared this as unconstitutional, but this was passed as a constitutional amendment under Article 368 with state ratification. ठीक है, अब लेट अस से मुझे आर्टिकल 21A ऐड करना है, नई फंडामेंटल राइट ऐड करनी है। इज इट चेंजिंग द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन? यस। इज इट अ सीरियस इनफ चेंज? यस। बट इज इट अफेक्टिंग फेडरलिज्म एडवर्सली? नो, इट इज नॉट। और कहीं फंडामेंटल राइट में लिखा है कि दे विल नॉट बी कंसिडर्ड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट्स? कहीं भी नहीं लिखा है। सो आर्टिकल 21A, which was added through the 86th constitutional amendment, was a constitutional amendment under Article 368 without state ratification. Without state ratification. अब आपने कहा कि यार उत्तर प्रदेश को काट के उत्तराखंड करते हैं। अब हमारा उत्तर प्रदेश उत्तराखंड तो शेड्यूल 1 में लिखा है, तो हमें टेरिटरी बदलनी पड़ेगी, नया नाम ऐड करना पड़ेगा। आर यू चेंजिंग द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन? यस। बट इज इट अ सीरियस इनफ चेंज एज पर 368? नो। एंड बहुत क्लियरली लिखा है दैट टेरिटोरियल चेंजेस विल नॉट बी कॉल्ड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट्स। दैट इज व्हाई दिस वाज कॉल्ड द यूपी Reorganization Act. And when we changed, first it was from Uttar Pradesh, it became Uttar Pradesh and Uttaranchal, and then from Uttaranchal it was renamed to be Uttarakhand. All of these are changes to Schedule 1 of the Constitution. But the Constitution under Article 4 very clearly says any territorial change will not be an amendment, and therefore simple majority. ठीक है, simple majority. ट्रिपल तलाक, यू वांट टू मेक अ लॉ क्रिमिनलाइजिंग ट्रिपल तलाक, इसका कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से कोई लेना देना ही नहीं है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में कहीं लिखा ही नहीं है, इट्स एनी अदर लॉ। So you're making a new law. ट्रिपल तलाक को क्रिमिनलाइज करने के पैसे थोड़ा ना लगेंगे, ऑर्डिनरी बिल है ना, सिंपल, क्लियर. नाउ फॉर एग्जांपल सुप्रीम कोर्ट अभी वो सैलरीज का चल रहा है ना. सपोज लेट अस से, लेट मी गिव यू अ सिंपलर एग्जांपल. लेट अस से आई वांट टू इंक्रीज द सैलरीज of Supreme Court judges. Are the salaries mentioned in the Constitution? Not at all. They are done through the Supreme Court Salaries Act. Now, number of judges remain the same. बस पैसा ही तो ज़्यादा लग रहा है. It is going to be a money bill. But if I increase the number of Supreme Court judges, we had done that in 2019. We increased it from 31 to 34. आप नए बुड्ढे ला रहे हो ना, नए बुड्ढों को पैसा देना पड़ेगा. So this will be a financial bill. So this will be a financial bill. So the purpose of this is you can look at any law and you can clearly know what kind of a bill, what kind of a majority it is. ठीक है? Understood? Right? So that's how it is. Article 368 gives you a list of things कि इसमें which state ratification लगेगा, बाकियों में नहीं लगेगा, या फिर बहुत क्लियरली बताएगा कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल इन आर्टिकल 4 that any changes made to territory, which is article 1 to 3, 4, will not be an amendment to the constitution under 368. ठीक है? Understood? So this is the application of majorities to lawmaking in India. This is the application of majorities to lawmaking in India. ठीक है? Clear? Understood? Done. Okay? All right. Sorted. ठीक है. See you tomorrow at 11 o'clock. We'll finish the golden rules and then finish territory tomorrow itself. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a good day.